Drive ignition.
This is Actar's Reviews. Yada yada does it. Hey, this is Actar and welcome to another episode of Actar's Figure Reviews. I suppose you guys are tired of girls constantly dominating my reviews. So I've decided that it's time to get manly. And what better way to do so than to delve into one of the most manly, super popular shonen action adventure manga epics, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, I'm not really sure how popular JoJo's is outside of Japan, but most people would probably have heard of JoJo's from the phenomenal arcade fighting game put out by Capcom on the PlayStation and Dreamcast. Here's a brief introduction for those who know nothing about the series. Backstory haters and people who already know about it can skip ahead to the stated time. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a manga created by Hirohiko Araki, starting in 1987 and continuing on even today. It is a real epic that has been split into 7 arcs. However, since they were written in a way that makes each individual arc possible to read independently from one another, one could just jump straight into whichever part they choose without reading the rest. For all my JoJo's reviews, we shall only be focusing on the 3rd arc, Stardust Crusaders. It is arguably the best and most popular of the JoJo's series, not to mention my personal favorite. It is also the only part of JoJo's to be adapted into English by Viz and to receive a 13-episode OVA, not counting the Phantom Blood movie, which has since been phased out of existence. The story of this segment follows the adventures of Jotaro Kujo and his grandfather, Joseph Joestar, protagonist of the 2nd arc, Battle Tendency, on a mission to defeat Dio, a power-hungry vampire determined on obtaining the blood of Joseph to regain his powers, I should say, and by vampire I don't mean the sissy Twilight vampire. No. Dio is the most badass vampire in existence. He is suck your blood with his fingers through your face badass. But I digress. Along the way, Jotaro and Joseph meet new allies that join their Dio-destroying group, such as Kakyoin, Avdu, and JP Polnareff. While the story may sound cliche, JoJo's takes it to an entirely new level that makes the manga and OVA unparalleled in terms of epic action awesomeness. Now you really need to watch or read it for yourselves if you haven't already done so. Stardust Crusaders was the first arc in the JoJo series to introduce stands. Now I won't really elaborate much, but stands are basically psychic extensions of the characters themselves and can be called superpowers in, well, inverted commas. Most stands are in the shape of humanoid beings that can be called upon to fight. For instance, Jotaro's stand is the very famous Star Platinum. Each stand possesses a unique power that will be covered as I go through the figures. But half of the fun of the series is our heroes trying to figure out the powers of the various evil stand users they encounter. Throughout the course of the series, I will definitely have to talk about the powers that the stands possesses, and these could be considered significant spoilers, so do be forewarned. Moving on to the crux of my series of JoJo's figure reviews, I shall be taking a look at Medicos' line of JoJo's Super Action Statue figures from Part 3. These are the best JoJo's action figures that you can buy in terms of price and quality. Well, of course, not counting the Reaction Heroes figures, because those really are pretty expensive. And you'll see why in just a moment. Today's subject is our main hero and titular hero, Kujo Jotaro, or JoJo for short. First off, taking a look at the box, all the boxes have this nice diamond checkered pattern with the only variable being the color scheme. JoJo's is in this lovely shade of violet purple. Now we can see the name of the figure in shiny gold all around the box. Do note that it says Kujo Jotaro II because this is a repaint of the first JoJo's figure, which had a black school uniform among other things, but of course this one has the blue school uniform. Hirohiko Araki is infamous for not having set color schemes for his characters, thus leading to numerous interpretations and hence repaints of figures. Whichever you like is really up to individual preference, but I prefer the colors that are closest to the ones represented in the OVA. Moving on, the title of the series, JoJo's Bimyo no Boken, or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Super Action Statues SAS series. Turning the box to the side, we have JoJo posing in his trademark pose, and at the back of the box, a collage of pictures featuring the figure in even more signature poses, a number of pictures showing off all the accessories that comes with the figure, and even a short character bio in Japanese. So that's pretty much about it. Let's pop this sucker open. Now here's the figure in the plastic packaging. Like all other Japanese figures, or like most of the other Japanese figures, the accessories are laid out very neatly in this clamshell plastic packaging, devoid of twist ties. Now let's open this up and take a look at the figure in greater detail. Right off the bat, you can already see why I have fallen hook, line and sinker for this entire line. Excellent details, superb paintwork, and stunning accuracy. It looks just like JoJo, as if he's been realized in true 3D. Notice the minute details like those on his belt, executed flawlessly, the shading and the varying tones and color gradients used throughout the figure to depict shadows, and even the presence of a real metal chain to replicate, well, the metal chain that JoJo inexplicably wears on his school uniform, and even his hat that is renowned for melting into his hair is recreated. Bravo! The figure is somewhat stylized, but not McFarlane posable statue stylized. This is truly an action figure that will be able to recreate any signature pose and still look exquisite. The build quality of the figure is superb. It feels solid in hand, has some weight to it, and the joints are all nice and tight, but sometimes too tight. Which brings me to one of the biggest problems regarding this entire line of figures. Now when the figure arrives in your hands brand spanking new, the joints have a habit of sticking. Just using enough force will unstick them, but sometimes the articulation points can get somewhat unconventional, as each figure is a brand new mold designed specifically for one character, and the joints aren't always identical. Now for the wary figure collector, this would pose an enormous problem, as while force can unstick a stuck joint, application of force on a joint that does not permit articulation in that particular direction will more often than not result in a clean snap. Which leads me to problem number 2, the joints have proven themselves to be somewhat brittle. So normal play and a little rough housing should be a-okay. Whatever the case, to help alleviate figure collectors of this worry, Medicos had the ingenious foresight to provide you with an articulation sheet. I am not kidding you. This lists all the articulation points on the figure and allows one to be 100% confident when handling the figure or when trying to unstick a stuck joint. Good job, Medicos. Full marks for effort. While on the subject, let's talk about JoJo's articulation. First time, his head, it can move up and down, can rotate left and right, it can actually swivel side to side to a certain extent. While it does look as if his neck is on a double joint, it's actually not a double joint, contrary to what it actually appears to be. His arms can move forwards and backwards. Do know the extra piece there to actually smoothen out the joint and to meld it together, to blend it together with his actual coat. Can move forwards and backwards, up and down, can swivel side to side, can move forwards and backwards. This is just a regular arm joint. His elbow can move forwards and backwards. His hands can move forwards and backwards, can rotate at the wrist and can rotate at the arm as well. Double wrist joint, which is always nice to have. And for his waist, even though this actually looks like a joint, it's not. He does have a double waist joint, one above his belt and one over here. The waist joint allows you to move the figure forwards and backwards, side to side, and rotate side to side at both points of his waist. His legs can move forwards and backwards, can rotate side to side, His thigh can rotate side to side as well. Knees can move forwards and backwards, but yeah, can turn side to side to a certain extent. His feet can move forwards and backwards, can, I suppose, rotate side to side. Yes, it can. Swivel side to side. And his toes are individually articulated. And not to mention, the back of his school blazer is articulated. On to accessories. Rest assured that Medicos does not fail us in this department. Other than the close-fisted hands that are already on the figure itself, Medicos has provided 5 pairs of exchangeable hands that range from pointing to somewhat opened, to karate chop, and a pair of hands that will allow you to pose JoJo grasping his hat.